Hey guys, this video has been prompted by something that's been happening in Australia recently, but it might still be mildly interesting to a couple of other people outside Australia because you'll recognise it from some of your own countries as well. What's been happening there is, in Australia, has been in Queensland, which is a state in Australia, there's been some new rules, new laws brought in. They've had some problems with violence between motorcycle groups, bikie groups, motorcycle riding club groups, and as a response to that, the government there has brought in some pretty harsh rules, or could be harsh rules depending on how they're administered by the police. But they've brought in some rules there about association. So in other words, groups of guys on bikes can be stopped. Just because they're a group of guys on bikes, they can be stopped and questioned. And a couple of other laws that are sort of along those lines. Now, if those laws were administered in a sort of a reasonable way, maybe they wouldn't be too much of a problem. But of course, people's fear or worry, people are worried that those laws will be abused, and that people riding motorcycles in little groups will be stopped and hassled for no reason. So as a result of that, what it's triggered off, and the reason for this video is, a lot of bike riders have started wearing cameras so that if they're stopped by the police, they can record the exchange. Now that's fair enough, of course. It's not a bad thing if you're being questioned by police. If you can record the scenario, it's not a bad thing. It makes sure that everything's you have a record of everything. That's a good thing to do. And if you do happen to be dealing with a bad copper, then obviously it's a useful thing to be able to have that on record as well. But the reason for this video is, it's just, I think you guys would agree, if you had a person who was being stopped by the police and they're being very agreeable, and they said, "Yes, officer, how can I help you?" And the cop said, "Oh, I want to see your driver's license." "Yes, sir, here it is." And the motorist was being very reasonable, and the cop was unprofessional, or did something illegal, or did something unprofessional, or did something that was against the police procedures or something, then I think, you know, that we would all support the person in having that copper prosecuted. So either through some what do you call that, is some civil action, or by reporting the police officer to his department, having him punished, or some other punishment for him for doing the wrong thing. But what we're seeing out of Australia at the moment is what we've seen coming from America for a long time, and it's these dudes that are just basically antagonising cops into confrontation. So the cop stops them and says, you know, good afternoon, sir, and the dude says, "What did I do? I didn't do nothing. And what are you stopping me for? Why don't you spend your time catching real criminals instead of wasting my time? Why are you stopping me?" Provoking confrontation with the coppers and then putting it on YouTube, right? Because it's one of the most popular formats for a video on YouTube is, you know, nasty copper hassles some innocent dude who ain't done nothing. You know, it's one of the most popular genres of video on YouTube. So it's popular on YouTube, but I don't think it builds a very civil society. You know, I think that this sort of thinking tends to, it's that us and them thing. I hate cops, all cops are bad. I think anybody who's worked with police closely knows that the majority of cops are doing it for the right reason. The majority of cops are doing it because they like working outside, they like variety, they like doing different things every day. They want to live in a better society, so they're trying to help society be better by, you know, protecting the good people and catching the bad people, or preventing the bad people from doing bad things, you know, and they're being coppers for the right reasons. And I think those of you who've worked with cops will know that's usually the case, you know. Then of course there is a small percentage of, same as there is in any group of people, there's a small percentage of assholes who shouldn't be doing it. Same as doctors, same as lawyers, same as any profession that you look at, there's always a small percentage of them that are in the wrong job, right? And I think that small percentage, they should be removed, obviously, and if they've broken any laws, they should be punished, undoubtedly, you know. And I actually used to live in Queensland in Australia, and I actually had a good association with a guy who was the sergeant in charge of the Police Professional Standards Unit of the Queensland Police Department. And I'm saying this because he's not there anymore, but I had a good relationship with him, and I can tell you that he was one of the most honest, decent, reasonable, good people that I've ever met in my life. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. And I have no doubt at all, if you handed him a video of some cop doing the wrong thing, breaking the rules, or breaking the law, or behaving unprofessionally, I have no doubt at all that this guy would have done his job to the fullest, which would have involved punishing that cop, right? Police Professional Standards Unit. And I think in these, 21st century, I think most police departments have some form of that. No doubt sometimes those systems don't work very well, but I think in this modern society, and most societies, I think, we can use both the systems that are in place and the media to keep the bad cops out of it as much as possible, and have them removed. And I think we need to be actively doing that. That if there is dodgy police, that we need to remove them, no doubt about it. But the point of this video is what we can do as citizens, and I don't think that sort of YouTube bullshit, the sort of bullshit we see on YouTube, is doing any benefits for our society. I think identifying bad cops and having them removed is good, but I think young dudes abusing and harassing or taunting cops into confrontation is not doing anybody any favours. You just imagine, because we've got to look at this, we're groups of people. I think only 14-year-old kids that hate anybody in authority, they hate their parents, they hate teachers, they hate cops, they hate everybody. Only kids or people that have that mentality would think that all cops are bad and that they're all bad and that we shouldn't have cops, and that's a childish way to look at the problem. I think most intelligent people recognise that we need police in societies, because unfortunately there's a percentage of society that are criminals, and if there wasn't an active police presence, that we would have criminals raping and pillaging, and it would be carnage, right? It'd be every man for himself, wouldn't it? And so we need police, and they're an important part of our society, and to have this us and them confrontational attitude with them all the time, it doesn't work. And I think that what we see from the US proves that, and what we're seeing from Australia is proving that Australia's going down the same path. I mean, the old days used to have pretty good relations between police and Joe Public in Australia, with some exceptions. We used to have protest marches and things where there'd be dramas with people and police, but generally we had pretty good relationships with the police. We didn't have that confrontation usually, The Australians are pretty relaxed. It was like, "G'day mate, how you going? Can I see your driver's licence? Yeah, here you go. Yeah, good, okay, yeah, no problem. You're speeding? Yeah, sorry. Write a ticket." There wasn't usually that confrontation, but what we're starting to see from Australia now is more like what we see from America, in the videos. I know it's not always the case, but what we're seeing is that confrontational type behaviour. And I think it doesn't matter where we live, I think we can see that it doesn't make our society better, which is really what we're about, isn't it? We're not really about just picking fights with cops, are we? Surely, obviously some people are, but in the big picture, what we really want to achieve is a good society, right? Where everybody's rights are respected and the bad guys are caught. And I think that's the other thing we need to remember. Some people would have it that the police can't stop anybody anytime. The police can't ask you for ID. The police can't ask you, any questions at all. That's my right. The cops can't ask me anything. Well, that's all well and good, but what sort of society are you living in? Now, I think, the countries that are doing that, like Australia and America, are full of crime and criminals. And I think anybody that's worked in law enforcement knows, if you tell the cops that they can't stop, anybody who's been a criminal would know this too, if the cops couldn't stop you without cause, and couldn't question you, and couldn't ask you for ID, and couldn't do anything, they'd never catch most of the crims. As long as, if I'm a criminal, and I'm wanted for all sorts of crimes, as long as I don't break the law when I'm driving my car, the police will never catch me, will they? They have no chance of catching me. They can't stop me. They can't ask me questions. They can't ask me for ID. They can't do anything. They'll never catch me. So I can go about raping and pillaging and doing whatever I want. The cops will never catch me. It's just not practical, So instead of that, I think those of you who watch the Japan channel would have seen on our on our Crime and Emergency Services playlist a couple of times there where some dodgy foreigner's been stopped by the police, and I think you'll notice that it was a pleasant experience. You know, one was a random stop on a Friday night. They actually stopped every car on the main road to check for drunk drivers, and all they were doing was talking to us basically to see if they could smell alcohol, and if they couldn't smell alcohol they'd let us go. And those of you who've seen that video, it was a really pleasant minute, which was about all it was. You know, the guy stopped, where you been, where you going? Oh, he didn't say that. He said, are you on your way home? And we had a bit of a chat for a minute. Really polite. He apologised for having, I showed him my driver's licence, apologised for having held me up, and I said, okay, see you later. Very pleasant way to spend 1 minute and to volunteer. Now, there's a lot of people that go, oh, you've got a right not to, it's my right not to be stopped for that minute. Well, yeah, okay. I'd be prepared to say, I'm prepared to give up 1 minute of my time to sit in my car for 1 minute and have a polite conversation with a polite policeman and give him my driver's license, he checks it, and then I drive away on a road that I know doesn't have any drunk drivers on it. Because those guys were checking every car, you know? And I've got friends and family that drive up and down that road every day. And I want to know that there's no drunk drivers on there. Now that's the only other times I've been stopped was for speeding, so you know that's my own fault. But that's the only time I've been stopped in one of those things, and I'd be quite happy to do that every week. You know, if they did that randomly every day of the week, and I got stopped once a week for that, I'd be happy to do that every week. It's only a minute. You know, and the point is that I think we need to be reasonable, and we need to accept that we're groups of people. Now, I think we all, intelligent people, know that police are policemen. They could be, you know, and if you know any cops, you know, it could be your older brother, your younger brother, your uncle, your aunt, you know, your sister. You know, cops are just normal people, most of them, and they're just people. They're a group of people, and citizens are people, and they're us. You know, this them and us thing, they're us. They're part of society like we are, you know, and that confrontational attitude with them, to expect police to treat us with respect when there's a huge group of our societies treating them with disrespect is ridiculous. Now in Japan, the citizens usually treat police with a lot of respect, and the police, as you've seen on that video, and the police in Japan treat us with a lot of respect, right? And it's a mutually respectful, pleasant thing. Police are great here. If we need to get information, trying to find some street somewhere, we don't know where it is, stop and ask the police at the little Koban, little police station, and they point to it. Really, it's always pleasant, almost always. Again, you know, there's the occasional Japanese policeman who's not real friendly, but most of them are really wonderful. We don't have any of those dramas here. You know, and I think that's the sort of society we aspire to, isn't it? And I think it's unreasonable to expect cops to treat us with respect. Imagine if you were a good copper and you joined for the right reasons, and all you're wanting to do is help society, and yet every day you're copping abuse from some young asshole with a camera, or it's just some young asshole in general, calling you a pig and calling you names, and why don't you go get a real job, and you know, you're only doing this because you got a little dick, all the usual stuff that people say to cops, you know, that some people say to cops. And cops take that sort of abuse every day. Now, if you start off as a decent person who loves people and is doing the job because you love society and want to make it a better place, how long before your attitude starts to change when you get constantly treated like that? And I think it's unreasonable for people to say, police should treat us with more respect, police should be more respectful of us, but police should respect me, police should do... And at the same time, everybody's quite happy to support these rude assholes that go around abusing police officers. You can't have it both ways. We don't do it with any other sector of society. Where else in society do you call someone an asshole and a pig, and why are you wasting my time? Why don't you go and catch some real criminals? Why are you being an asshole? Where else in society can you talk to someone like that and expect them to treat you with respect? It's not going to happen, is it? And that's what these young guys do, is they antagonise coppers. Now, undoubtedly, some of those coppers are arseholes and shouldn't be in the job, but I think most of them just get antagonised to the point where they do say or do something that they shouldn't. And who wouldn't? Quite often I watch those YouTube videos and those young pricks being really rude and abusive, and I think, fuck mate, you speak to me like that on the street, I'll smack you in the mouth as well. You know, how much shit is a human being, now cops are humans, how much shit is a human being supposed to take? You know, so my point is, let's be polite and treat them nicely, and then we can expect to be treated nicely back. And if we're not, or if our rights are infringed or any other legitimate beef, then we can pursue that track and have them removed from the job if they're the wrong person for the job. But let's not expect to be treated with respect when we go treating other people with no respect at all. That's just ridiculous. So hopefully at least one person will see this and agree. Undoubtedly there'll be a bunch of, oh, cops are all bad, they're all bad, every cop's bad. There's no way that's logical. There's no, common sense says not every cop is bad. Common sense says not every cop is involved in some conspiracy to take away your rights, right? It doesn't stop people thinking that, but, you know, common sense says that's just not the way it is it? You know, so anyway. Interested to hear some other opinions on this topic, particularly from Aussies, if there's any Aussies watching, any Queenslanders. More videos coming soon.